Hello, guys. Welcome back to the second episode of the FPL Supper podcast. Thank you, all of you guys who have come in early and are already in the chat. Hello to all of you guys. It's supper time. And yeah, today we have a lot to cover, right? As we have in the title of today's stream, it's teams, fixtures, and also chip strategy that we want to cover. So we're going to go through all the teams, talk about their fixtures, what we like, what we don't like, a bit of chip strategy towards the end, and then also our own draft. So, as always, I have with me Nick, who is ever ready. And Nick, how are we feeling today?
Feeling good. Looking forward to this pod all week. It's been more than a week now, right, since we did our first one previous Sunday. Just a reminder, everyone, we'll be doing this every Tuesday at this time. So looking forward to getting to know you guys throughout this season. Excited, even though the season hasn't started. I think multiple drafts through my head already, trying to follow the news as much as possible. Filtering out all the fake David Ornstein accounts on Twitter as well. That's a bit annoying. But yeah, hopefully you guys are having a good kind of in-between time between the end of the World Cup and start of FPL. But yeah, looking forward to chatting.
All right, thanks, Nick. So yeah, we can't wait to get cracking. And I think since we are on the top, let's just get straight into it, right? Since we are on the topic of breaking down all the teams, I think the best place that we should start is talking a bit about some of the predictions that we have for the upcoming season. Right, so let me just put it up on screen. So this is on screen right now is the predicted table by 11FI, which is a model that uses a market predictions and also some odds, basically. So I think all this is generally the kind of data right now that we see quite often in the FPL community now, where projections start to come in quite a bit. So I have my thoughts on these predictions that we see on screen right now, but Nick, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this. We had a look through before the stream just started. Any thoughts on this so far?
Oh, many thoughts. Interesting. Somehow I didn't imagine Arsenal still being top, even though they won the league last year. Somehow I just feel like the predictions will just go to City winning the league again. I think the only reason why they're just slightly behind Arsenal might be Pep leaving, actually. That's my weird take. Not too happy with United only being fourth. We finished third last year. Hello. So hoping to actually break into the top three this year, if possible. Wow, somebody already posted a team. Sorry, I was very distracted there. But looking forward further down, I mentioned just now as well, I think Spurs is too low. I think they finished 17th, but I do think they'll finish in the top half this year. Make good buys, and despite my shot about Spurs being a trap, I think they will come good. Let's see. Sunderland's crazily in 17th as well. I think that's a bit unfair to them, considering the great season they had last year. I think they will do better than 17th, in my opinion, but probably middle table, somewhere between maybe 8 to 12 is where I see them finishing. How about you?
Yeah, I think I have to agree with most of your thoughts there. I think for Arsenal and Man City, we'll go through later with Arsenal, but for sure, like some players have left, but they've also signed some pretty good players, maybe some incoming as well. So maybe that's the reason why the projections are still very healthy for them. They've placed them slightly above Man City. I won't say, end of the day, these are predictions, so I won't say I think the point is to see also that these two are kind of the runaway teams that we are expecting this season, which I guess is in line with most of what we imagine. But I think when I look at Man City also coming quite close to Arsenal, they also, I guess, don't imagine there to be too much of a transition season for Man City, because most of the time when they change managers, you expect there to be some form of transition. But someone like Enzo Maresca has worked with the Man City team before, and I think that's why the transition is expected to be much smoother. So yeah, I guess I don't see Man City coming off too much. I see them, kicking off quite strongly as well. you'll see later on the fixtures are also pretty good for them. Man United, I have to agree with you. I'm not a Manchester United fan. I mean, you are, but I have to kind of place them a bit higher here. I think maybe third is my prediction for them. As for Chelsea, I mean, I'm happy to see us being placed around there. I'm hoping that by the time the season ends and we come back to this pod, that Chelsea would be, somewhere further up. I think things are looking up. Basically, I look at the signings we've made. Xabi Alonso coming in, I am quite hopeful. Yeah. And further down the list, I think the main teams for me that I would highlight again is Spurs, that you mentioned. They currently have the highest jump. Like 17 to 11th is pretty significant. But yeah, I do foresee that with the amount of money they're spending this summer, maybe a bit higher. The quality of players are there. And even last season, we couldn't imagine that they finished so low with the kind of players that they had. So yeah, foresee them at least first half of the table. Sunderland is a team that I think we are seeing too much of a drop off here by the models. I don't know why. Maybe the models know something that we don't. But yeah, I mean, I don't foresee them being just above relegation. You saw last season how good of a defense they are. So I kind of still back them to do well enough to be, not so close to the relegation zone at least. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the predicted team. Anything else to add before we jump on to the team by team breakdown?
Yeah, just ending thoughts is, so you said United will be higher, Chelsea will be higher. That means Liverpool fifth at the highest, which is interesting. I think Liverpool fans won't be too happy with that. Yeah, I also noticed, not only Sunderland in 17th, but their predicted points is also quite a big drop off from Fulham in 16th. A good 5 points, right? So essentially almost closer to relegation than to 16th place. So I don't know what's going on there. Last shout out is, I think Newcastle's a bit high. I know at 8th, some Toon Army fans will probably be like, that's way too low in that sense. But a lot is going on. We'll talk about Newcastle a lot later, I assume. It's a mess. It's a mess over at Newcastle, and I think they might find it tough to, launch a good season, I feel. But we'll see. We'll see where they land at the end of the kind of transfer window.
All right. So I guess this is a good segue, right, into our team breakdown. So we're going to go alphabetical order for the benefit of those who are listening on podcast as well. So we'll display the fixtures on screen, but since we're going in alphabetical order, I think it's quite easy to follow as well, just in case you're not having the graphic on your screen. So on the screen right now, in alphabetical order, the first 10 teams, right? So Arsenal, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Brentford, Brighton, Chelsea, Coventry, Crystal Palace, Everton, as well as Fulham. So we have their first 6 game week fixtures, and we're gonna start off with Arsenal here. So maybe I'll kick things off, and let's go with, I guess, a breakdown of their fixtures first. So when you look at game week 1, Coventry here at home, I think it's a great fixture for Arsenal for sure to start the season off on the correct footing. But immediately after that, I think the downside here is Aston Villa away and then Chelsea at home. Those are 2, I guess, tougher fixtures, right? That we will have to find some way to navigate. And then from game week 4 onwards, I think it's a bit better, right? There's a bit of a swing basically from game week 3 to game week 4. From game week 4 onwards, then Arsenal's fixtures start to look a bit better. Now, Nick, any thoughts on Arsenal, their signing so far, any rumors that they've have, and also what are your thoughts on Arsenal assets going into the season?
Many thoughts about Arsenal. I won't go too much into detail where we have a lot of teams to get through, but top level thoughts for now is that you might not want to front load too much about on Arsenal. I think it's a lot of players coming back late from the World Cup. I think that's one thing that we got to take note of, right? Saka, Rice, Eze, Madueke, and of course Saliba getting hurt. So a good portion of their kind of main team is maybe coming back a little bit not fit from the World Cup off a rest. And I think that's also why a lot of, if you've been following other content creators, essentially they're thinking about doing an early wildcard in maybe game week 4, game week 6, and that's when they're going to bring in the Arsenal players, because that's when, they're all back and they're fully bedded in. That does mean that you miss that first amazing Coventry fixture that you mentioned. So not ideal. Depends how you think about it. I personally think it's quite interesting the way they've kind of done business as well. Brought in Melier, a sub-keeper, likely to Raya, of course. Hincapie is brought in on kind of long term. So he's an option together with obviously Mosquera and Calafiori for the start of the season. And interesting player in, I don't want to mispronounce it, Christos Solis, if I'm not wrong, in the midfield. Especially with so many of the assets kind of not coming back fresh so soon. So this might be an interesting one. He actually just scored in the friendly against Girona as well. So that's pretty encouraging to see from the new Arsenal signing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think Zolis that you mentioned, right? I think he was obviously brought in to replace Trossard, who's gone to Besiktas. And I think Trossard was a really key player for Arsenal last season. And the thing with Solis that they've got is he actually does have Premier League experience. Like he's played with Norwich City before, right? So as if he hasn't played in the Premier League before, I think that also is a good thing for him because he doesn't need to take too much time to adjust. And yeah, as Arsenal as a team, on the whole, I would say that when I look at their set of first three fixtures, I would go so far as to say the maximum that we can go with in game week 1 to start the season is 2 Arsenal assets, and those 2 would be defenders. Defensive assets, doesn't have to be defenders. So it can be like a Raya plus a Mosquera, kind of a makeup. But I just would avoid the attackers in totality. I think when you look at Havertz as well as Gyökeres, there's always uncertainty of minutes of who's going to start. I think preseason we've also seen Havertz do pretty well. Right, Gyökeres maybe a little bit quieter, but Havertz has looked really sharp. But yeah, just in general, the attackers, even someone like Declan Rice who's coming back with fatigue from the World Cup, I'll just lay off all of these players, wait until after game week 3, and then we can go for them, as you said, probably on the game week 4 wildcard if anyone is on the game week 4 wildcard strategy. So yeah, that's probably my thoughts going into the season with Arsenal.
Yeah, no, that's a good shout. I see in the chat as well, people are already thinking about it. I think GV, I'm not sure if I should call you GV, but he said that Kai or Gyok might be a better option than Solis. And that's interesting because people don't really know how Arteta's going to start out in terms of leading the line. Kai, just like Solis, also scored in the 4-1 win over Girona. So that's encouraging. Both of them played in the World Cup, so they're not too unfit in that sense, and they got back, to training before the semi-finalists of the World Cup. So that's quite interesting as well from an Arsenal standpoint. Any final thoughts before we move on to Aston Villa?
I think the last thing I'll say about Arsenal before we go back to them later on is that I think their fixtures kind of determine a bit of our chip strategy. I will elaborate on this later on, but I guess you can kind of tell like why game week 4 is quite a popular wildcard window. From their fixtures just alone. Obviously, they're just one team, but already from game week 4, you feel like you want to triple up on them. That seems like a decent enough window. But yeah, early thoughts. We can move on to Aston Villa. Would you like to take the lead for this one?
Sure, let me do this. So Aston Villa, interesting start to the game kind of season. Brighton away to start is not always the easiest fixture, but then you go straight to home to Arsenal. Hosting Arsenal at home, of course, one of the hardest fixtures that you can have at home. But then you have a pretty smooth sailing game week 3 to game week 6, right? Hull away, Forest at home, Spurs away, and then Brentford at home. I think interesting about Spurs, I don't know where to place them. Are they an easy fixture? Are they a hard fixture? No one really knows yet. I think we'll probably get a good sense game week 3 in. So to me, I think it's a decent run, but probably more from game week 3 onwards. Side note, other than fixtures, is that I don't know, or I don't really can truly say that I have a lot of faith in their assets this year. So I'm just going to jump straight to you, Leon. Any Aston Villa players that you're looking at right now, as of right now?
Yeah, I mean, even before I go into that, I'm gonna just say like the players that they've lost this season are quite key players, like the players who left Tielemans to Manchester United. Then there's also Rodgers to Chelsea. Like these are key players last season that pretty much played every single game for them, a core structure of their starting 11. And the only thing I guess that they have going for them is that they've tried to sign replacements. And the replacements in and of themselves are quite exciting. I look at someone like Manzambi, right? Very exciting player. And I think I wouldn't say Garnacho is exciting, but I think under Unai Emery, I think Unai Emery just he feels to me like someone who knows how to coach someone like Garnacho. Like Garnacho is not an easy player, if you ask me. I mean, you would know from Manchester United. I would know from Chelsea, yeah. So he's not an easy one to get around. But I feel like Unai Emery, with the experience that he has, could maybe get the best of Garnacho. But it is a loan, right? So we'll see. But these are players, I guess, that they've brought in, João Gomez as well. Players that they've brought in to try and replace the players that they've lost, which are important assets. So yeah, I mean, I would say that it's very difficult now to estimate or predict how Aston Villa are going to do. And that's pretty much why I would kind of lay off their assets for the start of the season, especially in game week 2, they play Arsenal. Like in any case, in game week 3, I could do without any of their assets against Hull. I don't think it's a do or die situation. I could just get them on later on. I feel like Aston Villa feels to me like a wait and see kind of a team.
100% agree. I think Aston Villa is tricky because, as you said, team has changed quite a bit. There are even some unknowns that we should be looking out for, right? Obviously, mainstays Konza and Cash are quite exciting because they're at 4.5 for a defense, an Emery defense. That's actually quite attractive, right? If you think about it. But there's rumors about Konsa going out. Arsenal seems to be interested to replace Saliba while he's injured. And at the same time, you have Watkins at 8 million, which is kind of crazy if you think about it, right? Because he no longer has Rodgers behind him. Obviously, Manzambi has come in, but we don't know how they're going to gel. And I think Watkins at 8.0 kind of loses a bit of value, especially when you compare to Igor Thiago or even a Joao Pedro. So that's, to me, a wait and see as well. Last shout out as well is Onana got injured during the World Cup. So I think a big part of their spine is kind of thrown out the window for one reason or the other. So we don't know how Emery's going to deal with all that. I will wait and see.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah, so I'll move on to Bournemouth. When I look at the fixtures, I mean, it tells you a story in and of itself, like as to why like no one has Bournemouth players, or in most drafts that I've seen, no one has Bournemouth players. It's Man City, Newcastle, Liverpool, and Chelsea, all in the first 6 game weeks. I mean, I think that already sounds tough as you hear it. But not only that, right? There's also players that have got injured. I think the one that we definitely have to speak about is Krupi Jr. All of us were so excited, right, when the player positions came out and we saw that Krupi changed from a forward to a midfielder. We were all excited, and then we saw the price and we got a bit less excited because he's 7.5 million, and then he got injured, which is super unfortunate. But then it pretty much means that I don't think anyone's going to go anywhere near Bournemouth assets. Even, those popular assets last season, like Hill, I don't think you go for the defenders, even with the DEFCON. Senesi has also left. I think Bournemouth is also a team that will enter a bit of a transition, and that's why I guess I would be a bit more cautious on their assets as well.
You could basically cover it all. I have not much to say about Bournemouth. I do think, as per every season, their players will always, become a little bit tempting along the way. Tavernier had a good run last year as well. Evan not so much, but he sprouted out with a return or two here and there. But he is in that weird kind of 6.0 forward position, which there are a lot of better alternatives for. And yeah, I think that losing Senesi is actually a really big deal for them. I think they're going to miss him. Trufair actually did pretty well at some point as well for him. Sorry, for Bournemouth and for FPL managers. So a bit of a hard one to figure out for me, especially since, now their manager is at Liverpool. I don't really know how they're gonna line up, how the players are gonna look, and with that starting match fixture, there's really no point in starting with a Bournemouth player to start the season.
Yeah.
Okay, Brentford. We're moving on pretty quickly. That's good. I think we're good on time. I want to be mindful, not keep everyone here. But Brentford. Okay, I'll kind of kick it off. So, Spurs home. Spurs home first fixture, followed by Leeds, Sunderland, and Bournemouth, which actually seems like a pretty okay start. For the first four. Not just by colours, but I mean, objectively, I think it's not a bad kind of 4 games to kickstart your season. But then it does turn bad, obviously, with the Chelsea home and then the Aston Villa away in the 6th game week. Brentford's interesting. I do think that there are some players that are worth looking at. Off the top of my head, obviously, Igor Thiago was a huge one. I don't know where to place him. He's expensive. Right? People are hating on him because he scored 9-10 penalties last year. But on top of that, I think he also scored like 16 like non-penalty goals as well. I think he was doing really well in general. So I won't be surprised to see some people kind of gamble on him to start the season, especially since my hot take is that Spurs will start out well. So that could be an easy fixture to begin with at home. And then you have Leeds, Sunderland, and Bournemouth to kind of get some good early points, with some differential picks to start the season. Some players will go with Coyote to start the season as a good DEFCON defender at the back, as well as Schade. Schade is not the most on and out, kind of producing kind of a midfielder, but he does churn along quite well, with some DEFCON and some returns. So that's kind of my take. Anything that I missed out that you want to point out?
I guess I fully agree, right? That Thiago is a little bit too expensive at 8 million, but I have seen him in some drafts, and I think you mentioned as well a good reason for that is Tottenham, Leeds, Sunderland, Bournemouth. It's not a bad set of fixtures, and then from game week 4 onwards, if you are wildcarding, actually you're only getting them for the first 3, right? So Tottenham, Leeds, Sunderland is not too bad. And then you wildcard them out after that, just before Chelsea and Aston Villa. It doesn't seem like a bad deal at all. So actually, for those people who are planning or booking in a wildcard 4 already, I see quite a few Brentford players in there. I would also say that Aye, a bit of a spoiler, but Aye is in my draft right now, and he's 4.5 million. When he was playing centre back, his DEFCON hit rate was seriously good, 60 to 70% kind of DEFCON hit rate. So that's an extra 2 points, right? And I think right now with Vandenberg injured, that's the main reason why people think Aye will fill in at centre back. So one to look out for. In the chat, I see a couple of you guys mentioning as well, Dango Ouattara. So Dango Ouattara, yes, obviously a very talented player actually, and majority of the penalties that Igor Thiago took last season was won by someone like Dango Ouattara. And that's the thing, right? Even though Igor Thiago scored so many penalties, you need to have someone in the team who's good at winning those penalties or just tricky in and around the box. And I guess Dango Ouattara is just that kind of player. Right, then Kevin Schade, not to mention as well. But Schade is linked with Roma quite strongly. So we have to see if Schade still remains in Brentford. But yeah, if Schade is still there, definitely still one of those key assets for them. I remember last season there was this one game. I remember he scored a hat trick, like a very quick kind of quick fire hat trick. I would say that Kevin Schade on his day is quite a solid player. So in isolation, when I look at the Brentford attack, like the 3 of them, Schade, Thiago, and also Dango Ouattara, they are quite a force to be reckoned with.
No, I 100% agree. Actually, somebody did say that Schade's minutes might be in jeopardy, and I think I kind of know why, right? The big kind of not really big, but a decent signing for them is actually Jadon Anthony from Burnley. He did pretty well for Burnley last year, and we know how much Burnley struggled. So to have a kind of standout player from there jump to a team like Brentford, it's actually quite exciting. So we might see kind of Shada lose some minutes there. I think that's the kind of theory going around. An interesting one as well. I came across chatting in the Super League chat. Shout out if anyone's here from there as well. Is Sangare. So they brought in a Mamadou Sangare, and supposedly he is meant to kind of shore up the midfield a little bit, and he could be a really good shot for DEFCONs. I have not done my research, full transparency, but people are looking to him to be like the next Anderson, almost Elliot Anderson, to just farm DEFCON game week on game week, right? So that could be quite something to look forward to, especially because Brentford does have to take a lot of the kind of defensive work sometimes against especially the bigger teams. So it might be a good DEFCON outlet over there as well.
Yeah. I mean, great that you shouted Sangare out, because I just came across a tweet this morning actually, and I saw a chart. Right? I saw a chart that basically placed his DEFCON performance against Elliot Anderson's one, and this was when Sangare was in League One. Basically, they're using his last season's data with Lens, and it's better. It's actually better. I think marginally better, because Elliot Anderson is solid for by his own right. But Sangare to do better than Elliot Anderson just makes us, feel excited that we maybe have a similar kind of player to go for. And not only that, 5.5 million. Right. So I think that's why a lot of people were excited when we saw that. Yeah. Like you mentioned.
Yeah. Speaking of 5.5 million mid, perfect segue to our next team, Brighton. If you're done with Brentford, I think we should move on. Brighton, why don't you take the lead on this?
So Brighton, I mean, you mentioned it, right? It's the guy on the thumbnail today, right? Pascal Gross, one of the best 5.5 million assets in FPL this season. I'll say it first here. I think this season, out of all the 5.5 million assets, I think easily Pascal Gross is going to outscore all of them. We can come back to this. We probably can clip this up, but I would say Pascal Gross is going to be the top scoring 5.5 million midfielder in FPL. I just see him having so many routes to points, right? He's potentially on penalties. I say potentially because there's just a slight chance that someone else might take it. But right now, based on what we've seen, especially this season, there was a penalty that Brighton won and Pascal Gross took it. Not only that, in that same game, he got an assist as well from a set piece. And Hertzler actually came out to say that Brighton are actually, training set pieces, I guess, in a way, trying to say that they're prioritizing set pieces a little bit more. So that's only just good news for Pascal Gross. And yeah, I mean, DEFCON wise, he's actually pretty good for DEFCON as well when I saw his data as compared to the other 5.5. So definitely not as good as Sangare, like we just mentioned. But with everything that he offers as a package, 5.5 million sounds crazy.
Not much to say about, I like to call him Grob back in the day. But yeah, Gross is great. Pascal Gross has been in the game for a long time. I think we all remember, him starting out. I think I'm looking at the stats now. 2017, 2018 was when he first started in the league. And he's basically been in the league the whole time except for one season where he went on loan. So 2024, 2025. Yep. He's come back to the league, obviously not had great minutes. He's also not young anymore, right? Having played for quite a while. But he is a pretty big mainstay for Brighton, and one that I think will take a lot of set pieces whenever he's in there. And when he's fit, he tends to start. And is a very kind of respected figure, a senior figure in Brighton's team. So no doubt, I do think he'll be a good player for them, both in returns as well as hopefully a bit of DEFCON, as you said. That said, I do think they have lost quite a few important people, Brighton as well, right? Van Heck has gone to Spurs, and Welbeck has gone to Chelsea. Would love to get your thoughts, on whether you celebrated Danny Welbeck coming back to the club. I say coming back to the club because I saw Rio Ferdinand try to draw him back to United and completely fail. It was hilarious, but I would have loved to have him back as a kind of second choice striker to Šeško or however kind of United sets up. But he's a really good get for you guys. Back to Brighton, right? So that kind of shakes things up a little bit. I do like a lot of Brighton players over the years. A big, kind of player that I love to always get at some point is Mitoma. No Asian biases there, but I do really like Mitoma's play style in general. He's a really smart player and seems to really strike the ball really well. Unfortunately, he's almost always hurt. So he didn't make the World Cups, unfortunately for Japan. And he also, doesn't seem to be mentioned at all. So I don't think he's fit. I don't know when he's back. That said, that means that Minte might have a bit more action as well. But main person I'm actually looking at besides Gross is actually Bart Verbruggen, right, in goal. This year, I think a lot of you have already noticed that there is a lot of kind of higher price keepers by the FPL towers this year, which means that the number of 4.5 keepers that are proper choices are really few and far between. Right, most people are looking at the two that I've looked at, Verbruggen and Kinski. I do think that Brighton goes a bit underappreciated for defense. Last year, quite consistently, they were quite far and beyond the best kind of mid-table team defensively. And I think that it's not reflected in the prices of the defenders to start the season, which means that I think there are some steals over there. What do you think about the Brighton defense?
Yeah, I mean, they've lost Ben, right? So to me, that is like a big loss, but there are still good players there, right? Dunk is still there, and they've signed, as Vijay mentioned in the chat, Vuskovic, also someone that is very popular in the community now. They do imagine that his DEFCON hit rate, if it goes by anything that he's done in his career so far, is going to be good as well. I think in general, Brighton is that kind of team that they're mid-tier, but they have the potential to just do a little bit better than mid-tier, and that's what they have been doing over the past few seasons that we've seen. That kind of a team that you're not surprised if they beat Liverpool 2-1. For example, I say Liverpool because neither of us are Liverpool fans, and Liverpool fans probably won't like to hear this, but we've seen that happen, right? Or with any of the big teams for that matter, right? Don't just say Liverpool, right? So yeah, I mean, in general, Brighton are that kind of team, and I do rate them. For me, the only thing that I would mention before we move on is the fixtures, and that's why I guess a lot of people maybe would say, let's wait, maybe not even go for Gross just yet, right? It's Aston Villa, Chelsea, and then it gets good, right? It's Leeds and Coventry. Then it's Arsenal against Sunderland. So it's not an outstanding run of fixtures. But when I look at it, especially for those, again, I allude to a Game Week 4 wildcard, that's just the perfect opportunity to bring Gross in then, right? Because look, Coventry in Game Week 4 is like a perfect time. And then in Arsenal in Game Week 5, you just bench Pascal Gross. So yeah, I mean, I just like the fact that there's an option there, but it's not as if we need to, right from the get-go, start with someone like Pascal Gross or, looking at the defense as well. It's also like an area that I would just wait and see the impact of Van Heck not being there, see how Vuskovic works with Dunk, and then we'll see whether, it's a decent defense to invest in again this season.
For sure. Before we move into Chelsea, which is your team, some comments also mentioned about Gross being the perfect bench player. You've mentioned that as well. I do think that 5.5 is a little bit pricey to leave on the bench. Over the years, I've kind of subscribed to the theory that you shouldn't leave too much on the bench. And sometimes a 5.5 midfielder sitting on a bench feels kind of off. Because if you do leave him on the bench, Gross is one of those players that can kind of get you a goal out of nowhere, right? Because he's on set pieces, because he's basically involved in a lot of the build-up as well. So I don't really know if he is a fifth midfielder for me. He might be like a cheap fourth midfielder for me, where I kind of want to play most weeks. Even against bad teams, I think he always has a chance to kind of maybe have a cheeky assist or two. But more so, he's like that enabler at the same time. So we'll talk about this a little bit more. I think we should move on a little bit, but that's my thoughts on the issue. Chelsea, take it away.
Yeah, so Chelsea, I think for me, when I look at the set of fixtures, right, I see Arsenal in Game Week 3 and then Hull in game week 4 as a very tricky kind of period to navigate. And again, like we'll speak about this later on in the chip strategy section, but ideally, if that Arsenal fixture wasn't there, I'd be happy to just even go heavier on my team, right? Like right now, I have João Pedro, but if that Arsenal fixture wasn't there, I'd be even more confident to go with maybe even a Palmer as an investment or Rodgers, right? Rodgers is a bit risky because we don't know whether he's going to start right from the get-go. It's a new team. He needs to, adjust to it. Palmer has been here in Chelsea for seasons already. And I just do think that it's just a bit pricey for me to go there right from the get-go. So that's, I guess the three main attackers that people would consider from Chelsea. Aside from that, I do hope that we secure the Saliba deal. And I just imagine that if Saliba comes in, I do hope that we secure the Lacroix. I say Saliba because they look quite similar, but I'd say Lacroix is the player that Chelsea
it's
are
done, isn't
intending.
It?
Is it done?
Yet? I think it's
here
done
we go.
because I see him in the Chelsea, kind of selection on FPL. So I assume he has to be done.
So if it's secured, then I think this season our chances at like clean sheets, our chances at being a solid team there, I think we are up there pretty much. Like I actually do rate Lacroix as a player. Even at Crystal Palace, I just felt like he was quite a Rolls Royce of a defender. And I say Saliba just now because they actually play pretty similarly. Like if you ask me, they give me the same kind of vibe. Like so safe, so secure at the back, rarely making mistakes. Like that, I honestly hope that this season, like it's gonna look up for us. So the only thing, as I mentioned just now with Chelsea, is just the fixtures here, Arsenal in game week 3, that maybe makes me pull back a little bit. And probably, I have João Pedro here. I don't think I will go so far as to have even a Cole Palmer in my team. Rodgers at 7.5 is a little bit more affordable, but I just don't know, right, if Rodgers is someone that I'm comfortable starting right from the get-go. So yeah, I think pretty much just my thoughts on Chelsea.
Interesting. I'm actually surprisingly a little bit more upbeat than you. I see the Arsenal fixture. I recognize that it's not great, but the other 5 are pretty amazing. I really do like the fixtures for Chelsea. And it makes me even question why I haven't considered more Chelsea players in my team. I do have a friend kind of tuning in as well, who's a Chelsea fan. He feeds me all the Chelsea knowledge I need. So appreciate it, Gabe. But yeah, so I think Lacroix is a great signing. I do think that he will bolster your defense a bit, but only on an EPL kind of standpoint. The reason why I say that is because obviously he was great FPL wise last season, which is why he's at 6.0, which is interestingly enough higher than all the other kind of Arsenal defenders that people are looking at right now, right? When you compare it to Saliba even, right? But great thing is, Henry just mentioned it, Colwill. I think Colwill is a very good shot. I think Chelsea fans are all huge backers of Colwill and think that he should start the season. At a 3 at the back, it'd probably be, I think, Colwill, Lacroix, and Reece James is what I'm hearing. So I do think that's a good shout at 5.0, Colwill. In this run of fixtures at 5.0, some people are considering a Maguire, right? It's the same price. So I won't necessarily rate one over the other, just because they're kind of same price and the fixtures are really good for kind of both teams if you look at it that way. Attack's interesting. I love João Pedro at 7.5. I think everybody is on him. I'm actually surprised he's not higher owned, actually, because I did think he has had a really good last season. We talked about him a little bit previous pod as well, so I'm not going to go on too much about him. But with Rodgers and Palmer behind him, nothing to hate. Rodgers might take a while to bid into the Chelsea kind of system, Chelsea players, but he is Premier League proven. I think everyone knows what Rodgers is about, and I think there's only more room for Rodgers to kind of grow into as a player as well. So love that. VJ mentioned Palestra. Yes, my friends also my friends also a huge fan of Palestra. Just a little bit unsure whether he starts or whether he has regular kind of minutes, especially with the number of defenders that Chelsea has at the moment. I assume a good 10-20 of them will go on loan as per usual. But that's the Chelsea way. So we'll kind of see how it plays out pre-season to see what's Xabi Alonso's favorite system. I think Xabi is actually the biggest signing for you guys over the summer. I really quite amazed how Liverpool let that slip. Not bringing Xabi Alonso in to replace Arne Slot was a mistake. I think Chelsea has done well there. So looking forward to how Chelsea is going to play. And ultimately, I don't think they'll finish out of the top 6. A top 6 is pretty much quite secure for Chelsea if barring anything disastrous from me.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I actually am excited. I mean, just to wrap up this Chelsea part, I am excited to see the system that Xabi Alonso deploys. Right, you saw a lot of good players come out from that Bayern Leverkusen side that he managed. He had a very solid holding player in Granit Xhaka. When he was at Leverkusen, you're going to have one solid holding player here in Moises Caicedo. Then he played with wing backs there, someone like Jeremy Frimpong. We have those kind of profile players in Chelsea as well. And maybe that's also why they've signed Pelestri, right? So I do think big things are going to come for Chelsea. I'm just excited. And yeah, I think for me, I just want to navigate that game week 3 properly, because actually on paper, you look at Arsenal away as probably one of the toughest fixtures, and then in game week 4 you suddenly have the best fixture, which is Hull at home. So that's going to be a tricky one to navigate. I will speak more about it in the chip strategy section, but I think that could be an opportunity to kind of use some chips there. Right, so I'll move on to Coventry. And I think the thing with Coventry here is not a lot of us are going to look at them as a team where, okay, they have great fixtures, let's target them, but more kind of a team where, okay, they're pretty decent, they're coming from the championship, right? And they have good options, and those options are cheap, right? A lot of the 4.0 million defenders from Coventry are probably on our bench, right? And I think when you look at game week 2 fixture against Hull here, this is where I think a big opportunity to bench boost is coming out, right? Mainly because those cheap options on your bench would have their best fixture. And it's against Hull. It's a team that they've played in the championship. They know Hull very well. And Hull is predicted to be a team that is, bottom of the league this season based on projections. And their expected goals conceded last season in the championship was also really bad. So if there's any week that you want Coventry players and actually want to start them, then that would be game week 2. And that's why it's such a popular bench boost window, right? And then after that, I mean, either side of Hull is not great, right? Because game week 1, they have Arsenal. Game week 2, they have Man City. It's actually pretty tough for them, right? But after that, from game week 4 onwards, it's a decent enough run. I guess all the way, if I had a look at their fixtures just now, actually all the way until probably game week 15 or so, the fixtures are okay. So them being cheap as a bench option and having decent enough fixtures for the longer term is one of the reasons why I see a lot of these Coventry players on players' bench, on your manager's bench.
Not much more to add, really. I think the discussion that most people are having is Thomas versus Van Nieuwijk. I think that's basically it. Carl Rushworth has come in as keeper. I can't be sure. Let me just take a quick look. He is... Well, I'm not even sure how much he is, actually.
4.5. Rushworth's 4.5, yeah.
Okay, Rushworth's 4.5, which is not... I mean, it's cheap, but do you really want to kind of promote a keeper? I think other than Thomas versus Van Nieuwijk, people have been talking about bench boost game week 2. Chip strategy, I won't talk about too much here. I think you will talk about it more later. But targeting that Hull fixture, the set I have on hand is that both fixtures between Coventry and Hull in the championship last year ended 0-0, which bodes well for a Thomas Van Nieuwijk double up, even if you want to just have them sitting on the bench and then bench boosted in game week 2. That's all I'm going to say, right? I don't know enough. I'm going to pretend to know enough about Coventry. Of the two, if you were to ask me, I'll choose Thomas purely on DevCons. I think Van Dijk has a attacking threat, but in the Premiership, I don't think he's going to equal that record from last season in the Championship. Thomas has DEFCONs averaging, I think, 8 or 9 in the Championship as the top team in the Championship, meaning in Premiership, I think he'll easily hit even more DEFCONs, having busy days at the office basically every week. So that's my take on Coventry. Happy to move on if you are.
Yeah. So I think Crystal Palace, Everton, as well as Fulham, I don't actually have too much to speak about them because I'm generally not too interested in their assets. The only one I would mention from Everton is Norgard at 5.0 million. It's been announced as confirmed. And basically at that kind of price point, right, 5.0 million, people compare being at Everton back to when he was at Brentford, and he was putting up very decent DEFCON numbers. He had good enough goal threat as well. He did have quite some goal involvement. He's not the kind of player that you would expect to score week in, week out for sure, right? But for that kind of price point, 5 million, you're getting decent DEFCON potential. He probably will start beside Garner, who currently is not fit, right? He's injured in preseason, so you would assume that means Norgard starts, but let's see what happens. But I think at 5.0 million, very good enabler, right? Even you say 5.5 million for Pascal Gross is expensive to leave on the bench, then 5 million to leave on the bench, Norgard to start whenever you need him to, I think that's a better option to go for.
Agreed. I also won't spend too much time on these three teams. Palace, no one interests me at the moment for some reason. Obviously, that City fixture in game week 2 kind of compiles on that a little bit. We reassess in game week 3 or 4, right? If you want to bring someone in, Ipswich might be the right time to do that. If somehow they have a good start to the season. So I'm not going to talk much about Palace. Everton's interesting. I want to talk a little bit more about Everton because there are some players that I've seen being floated around. Specifically, Iliman Ndiaye. I think Ndiaye is linked with a move out to Saudi, but people are looking at him because of his pen potential. I had a really interesting conversation earlier today as well about how Ndiaye, yes, even with increased penalties, didn't do that much else, right? In terms of scoring non-pen goals as well as assists. So that could be a problem. When you compare to another midfielder, James Garner, you mentioned. James Garner actually had amazing DEFCON stats. And at that kind of mid-range midfielder range, it's actually quite interesting to compare a 4-goal, 3-assist season to a DEFCON season, like a DEFCON filled season. And actually, it doesn't take that many DEFCONs to kind of match the number of goals and assists that a 5 to 6 million midfielder actually gets. So it's quite interesting. I would love to have this chat another day, in another pod when we have more time, which is at what threshold do we start looking at DEFCONs less than goals and assists, right? There's a turning point I feel that we could probably highlight there. And of course, Ndiaye is 6.0, which is kind of is 0.5 cheaper than Dewsbury Hall. And the penalty thing is very kind of tempting. But you're right, Norgard, I didn't even realize the deal was done, right? But putting him next to Garner can really shore things up, which might mean they might share DEFCONs, which possibly might do not so good for both of them. That's one thing. Speaking of DEFCON machine Tarkowski obviously is in Everton. I think, strangely enough, they were kind of defensively sound at some points last year as well, despite further history back if you think about Everton. But always worth looking at Tarkowski at some point. He's always expensive. Oh wow, he's 6.0. Okay, yeah, forget I said anything. I'm not getting Tarkowski at 6.0 million. And even Pickford's at 5.5, which is kind of nuts if you think about it.
Yeah. No, but for Pickford, I think it's slightly different because Pickford is that kind of keeper where every season nobody goes for him, but he's one of the top few, like he's always one of the top few. So I was having a joke with one of my I was having a joke with one of my friends the other day. Like some of them were just saying maybe I just go for Pickford and set and forget, like never change the keeper. and I honestly thought like, go for it. Like I don't see anything wrong with it. He ends up always being one of the top few. He just pulls off so many saves, and he's pretty good for penalty saves as well. Like
Yes.
he's pretty good
Yes.
for that. And then when you get those, you get your bonus, you get this, you get that, you get your saves as well. Like that's pretty much how he does it. Like how he's so consistent. So yeah, I mean
No,
England's number one, right?
I agree. Pickford is one of those shit houses that I don't want to like, but honestly, he just grinds out good season after good season, and you got to give it to him, right? So yeah, I won't fault anyone for picking Pickford at some point, but at 5.5, I just find him a little bit pricey when there are actually a good slew of 5.0 keepers that are decent as well. Going to the chat real quick, Henry asks about Keane. I don't think Keane is starting, if I'm not wrong. It should be Tarkowski and Braithwaite, right?
Yeah, I mean if Brentford is fit, then yeah.
Yeah, so I would be careful about minutes if you were thinking about Michael Keane. He had another question that I don't want to forget as well. He was asking about Welbeck at Chelsea, and whether it will affect Pedro minutes. I don't want to forget about this. I'll get you to confirm this, but I think Welbeck is firmly a backup. I don't think he's going to displace Pedro anytime soon, as long as Pedro is fit. Am I right?
Yeah, that's my thoughts as well. Like, I mean, João Pedro is definitely our starting striker. Like, I see the only thing is instead of maybe getting, I guess, 85 minutes on average, which is what I would have expected without Welbeck, maybe now with Welbeck, it comes down a little bit, maybe 80 minutes on average, 75, 80 minutes. He'll definitely shave off some minutes from João Pedro, but I don't think it's going to be that significant.
Okay, good. Hope that answers the question, Henry. Sorry to kind of miss that. I thought it was a good question. With Welbeck coming in. Okay, let's finish up the top 10 with Fulham, right? So I know you didn't have much to say about it. Look at those fixtures. That's pretty crazy, pretty nuts start to be honest. Chelsea, Liverpool, United in the first 6. Maybe the time to get it is in game week 6, right? With that Ipswich away. I haven't looked at kind of fixtures from there. Last season, obviously Harry Wilson was the kind of main tempting player from Fulham. This season, not that much from me, to be honest. Iwobi is interesting. I do think he will play a big part in their season, but I do see Fulham kind of dropping down the table a little bit this season. For some reason, they don't really excite me, and I don't think they're going to do that much. What do you think, Leon? Anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not super interested. I mean, in fact, they've lost a couple of players, right? They've lost Issa Diop. They've lost Harry Wilson, right? I mean,
and Jimenez.
And Jimenez. So yeah, I mean, all these players are, I mean, big losses for Fulham. I mean, Joachim Anderson is still there. One of my favorite DEFCON assets from last season is still there. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, Fulham for me is maybe not even a wait and see. It's probably an avoid for now. But yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I don't have any picks from Fulham for you guys. Okay, we're at a kind of midpoint mark. I think we are a little bit over on time, where we can maybe go a bit faster in the second half. But I did want to kind of remind everyone that if you have any questions, feel free to kind of ask them in the chat. We'll get to them, if it's relevant to what we're talking about at the point of time. If not, we'll kind of try to answer them towards the end. We'll try to have a 5-minute Q&A at the end if it's possible, because we'll run through many other things like chip strategy and our drafts as well. So okay, Hull City. Why don't you take the lead on this one?
Hull City is just pretty much an avoid for me. Like, not even gonna mince my words. I think honestly they will finish firmly last this season. I mean, no disrespect to Hull, right? I just think that the Premier League is just a different gravy, and with their performance season and also how much expected goals conceded they concede in general. I don't think that's something you can allow in the Premier League, and you would be punished for it. So I honestly don't see anyone from Hull that I would, definitely go out and target. But there's one player that you would have potentially as a 4.5 mid, just a dead spot, just a fodder. If you need, it's Slater. That's what I'd say. That's pretty much what I'd say. Yeah.
That's a bit of a hint. I was looking at Slater myself, because really not many 4.5 starters around. Why not look at someone that could potentially get some DEFCON along the way, and just be an enabler for you. Kind of will undo any sort of bench boosting that you might be planning, I think, unless you kind of stumble upon a lucky kind of 4-pointer that week. But same for me. Nothing from Hull that really excites me. I do think they kind of with all the drama in the Championship playoffs last year, I think they kind of scraped by into the Premiership. And I do see them, going straight back down. If anything, I do only probably see Coventry or Ipswich having a kind of long shot at staying in the Prem. How not interesting for me at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty much all you have to say about Hull, and I guess it says a lot.
I mean,
but yeah.
Fun shout is that, a lot of very familiar names are coming back to the Premiership thanks to Hull. So Matt Targett, Jack Butland, Ollie McBurney. These names are throwback, man. Like they used to be, awesome for us back in the day as kind of budget options. Obviously, they've come in as budget options again. Who knows? Maybe Hull City will just go on an absolute tear, and we will have to have them midway through the season. That's obviously a wait and see. All right, I will just jump into Ipswich right now then. Likewise, I think Ipswich is kind of in between Coventry and Hull City for me. I think they obviously have that very tempting 4.0 defender, Issa Diop, who, transferred there from Fulham. Yes. So I think he's one that, you could potentially keep on your bench as an enabler. And he probably would get some DEFCONs and potentially a random headed goal or two from a set piece. So that's interesting. Some people were looking at Maeda and Fatawu, actually. Both midfielders, both relatively cheap, 5.5, if I'm not wrong. But I think it's just not attractive enough at this point in time, right? It's all wait and sees. And I don't.
5.5 I pay for Pascal Gross over Fatawu, right?
Exactly. There's just way too many other good options that unless you give me a 5.0 attacking threat from the promoted teams. I'm not looking at them right now. And you look at that fixture run, right? Fixture run is Sunderland home is not necessarily that easy. And then United away, Liverpool at home, horrible. So I think stay away. Have Diop if you would like for that kind of 4.0 enabler, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean nothing else to add honestly for Ipswich. I'll move on to Leeds. And actually for Leeds, it's kind of a team where Calvert-Lewin is definitely popular, right? I'll just go straight out and say that I think Calvert-Lewin is a very good option at 6 million. I mean, what you get with him, penalties, minutes. I don't think they would be signing any. I mean, it remains to be seen, right? The transfer window is still open. If they do sign another striker, I still foresee Calvert-Lewin would be first choice, but maybe similar to the João Pedro situation with Danny Welbeck, like a little bit of minutes could be shaved off of Calvert-Lewin. But I think in general, other than him, other people have considered Ampadu for just how cheap he is and also DEFCON potential. I don't mind Ampadu. Like Rodon is also someone that people are looking at in defense. But Rodon is kind of those 4.5 million DEFCON players that you would consider. But I mean, when I look at I want to pair that with fixtures when it comes to a team like Leeds, where they're not, say, super defensively solid. And yeah, I mean, the fixtures on there don't really excite me. I mean, it's Brighton away. I don't think it's a super easy fixture. It's great, but I don't think it's super easy. Then there's Newcastle at home, Crystal Palace at home, Arsenal away. Like in general, I would, look for other 4.5 million defenders other than Rodon. Like even at 4.5 million, I look at Luke Shaw with better fixtures for Manchester United. Maybe I'd even go there.
Yeah, I agree. Leeds is interesting. I don't think they have an amazing kind of fixture run, but a lot of players are kind of shouting out to be. DCL is in a lot of teams as their main kind of 6.0 striker. Harry Wilson coming in is, I don't know. I for some reason, I don't want to just assume that he'll carry that same form from Fulham into Leeds. But if he does, I do think Leeds can be quite a force to be reckoned with in that sense. Then you have, you mentioned Rodon as well. Yeah, I don't know what to make of Leeds. That's what I would say to begin with. DCL on pens is the main thing to go for, and not much more to say. VJ did say that they have interesting players like Ampadu and Malhamrovic. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's wait and see for me. All right.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. So maybe we can, there's Liverpool, Man City, and Manchester United. Maybe we can, because these are teams that we talk about so much, we can kind of discuss all of them whole, like these kind of very strong teams. And
Yep.
I look at firstly Liverpool, right? I'll just breeze through this part. Like I honestly, in terms of attackers, I only see two that we would be considering, which is Soboslai at 7 million, and then there is Verts at 7.5. A little bit more expensive than Soboslai, but I think there are some talks of how Soboslai could be playing a little bit deeper and Verts then maybe playing the AM role. And that's obviously a very good role in terms of FPL prospects. But yeah, those are the two attackers that I think people will consider. And Cody Gakpo is linked. I mean, I wouldn't say away, but like there are some rumors that he might leave. I don't actually know. Yeah, I don't actually know how serious a rumor it is, but I mean, I hope for Liverpool fans' sake that he doesn't go, because I feel like he's the kind of player that his work isn't finished yet at Liverpool. It feels like that to me. But yeah, I mean, in general, those are the attackers that you would consider. Defense wise, it's just Virgil for me. Like you look at there's Jacquet, which I did have in my draft at some point, right? 5 million, but for now, I've actually removed I mean, I'm a bit of a spoiler, but I've actually removed Jacquet from my draft. I'll speak about that later on as to why. But yeah, I guess in terms of fixtures, it's not too bad, right? Especially with Newcastle losing so many of their key assets. And we'll discuss later, I'm sure, like Eddie Howe as well. Like, I think that's a fixture that you can actually see Liverpool doing well. And the next few is pretty good as well. So it's first 5 is not bad. I think Liverpool is a decent team to go for. And yeah, maybe I'll let you chime in here. Any thoughts on Liverpool?
A lot. But you've said most of them, right? Fun fact is when I was kind of doing that Njai research and discussion with them, I saw that Everton only had 2 penalties, which Njai did convert both. And I was like, okay, fine. So maybe Njai is not that big of a FPL kind of asset, right? If they're only drawing 2 penalties. Guess who also earned only 2 penalties last season? And that's Liverpool. It is crazy to think, right? But Liverpool only earned 2, and people call him Liverpool. I don't think I actually think that they had a bad kind of run in with the calls against them, because I think they definitely should have gotten maybe more than 2 pens. But that's it. If they somehow don't get pens, they maybe shoot outside the box or whatever it is, for whatever reason, that makes the box slightly less interesting if he even has a share of the penalties with Isak. So I think worth thinking about. A lot of people don't necessarily think Szoboszlai is that worth it, because pens aside, he will not be as far ahead as Wirtz, right, for 0.5 more. So that's the big discussion that I think most people will be having. Barcola's interesting, right? Obviously, Henry mentioned that if he joins, I think he'll be great. They do need someone else on the wing now that Salah's gone. Barcola will be great, I think, for them. I think for the Gakpo situation, I hope for Liverpool fans that he doesn't leave as well. He seemed to be a very big honest slot favorite, which could be different now under Iraola, right? So we'll wait and see on that. I do think he's great. I'm looking to see where Ekitike fits into all of this once he's back, actually. I think a lot of people are considering Isak to start the season as a alternate, maybe no Haaland kind of vibes.
As a gamble, I guess.
That's a huge gamble because I don't think he did well at all last season. Right? Ekitike was the main guy for me. So we'll see. Defense is where I want to talk a little bit more. I did have Jacquet, and I still have Jacquet in my draft, if I'm not wrong, because I do think Virgil is just a little bit too much, especially if I can get a 5.0 into the Liverpool defense. Konate is gone, right? Gomez is hurt, so there's really not much competition for Jacquet at the moment. So it does seem like he will start the season. That said, they did just concede 4 to Leeds, obviously without Virgil, so it's hard to say.
To cover Lewin.
Exactly. So I think this is wait and see. I still have him in my team, and I probably will kind of keep him in there. But there are a lot of other 5.0 options out there. Obviously not as good as a Liverpool defense. Like you're looking at maybe a Maguire, you're maybe looking at a Nico Williams, who are interesting as well. So a lot of question marks for me over Liverpool, how they will set out, how they will play. I like Kirkes, I like Frimpong. This is a lot of options that I think some at least 2 or 3 of them will come good middle of the season, I think. Just a little bit perplexing to start the season for me.
Yeah, I mean, I do hope, like, I mean, you mentioned Kirkes, right? I do hope that Indoni Areola is able to get us back that Kirkes that he worked with in Bournemouth. If that's the case, I think Liverpool have a player on their hands. I don't actually ever think that Kirkes reached his full potential under Arne Slot. So if he's able to do that under Areola, I think it's only good for Liverpool. So, yeah.
All right. Let's not spend too long on Liverpool. I think I mean, as a United fan, surprisingly I can talk a lot about Liverpool. I do think they have a good team. You know, I am not biased in that way. I don't hate on Liverpool as much as other United fans maybe, but they have a good team, and I will pick up some players from them. All right, City. This is going to be interesting. I'll kind of get started here. Easy fixtures to start the season, right? Obviously, everybody who has Haaland has already thought about it. I won't go much about Haaland. You know, Walovi ambassador. You know. Best meme of the World Cup, whatever it is. Bournemouth home, Crystal Palace away, Coventry home, easy start. Arguably, United away is okay, but I don't necessarily think United has been that solid in the back. Especially, I don't know if Lissandro's going to be fit. De Ligt's not back. You know, I could see Haaland kind of ripping them to shreds potentially. Then, of course, Sunderland, and then there's that Liverpool away, which will be a pretty big highlight game, week 6 game for people kind of following. I do want to kind of point out a few players. Nico O'Reilly, 6.5. Anton Semenyo, 8.5. Donnarumma, 5.5. All of these players, and Guardiola, 5.5 as well. All these players actually have kind of been priced as City assets. What I mean by that is they're just kind of marginally higher than everybody else. Nico O'Reilly at 6.5, basically only has Virgil at 6.5. Semenyo is 8.5, which is kind of a weird area by himself. I don't know if there's many 8.5s in the game right now. Donnarumma at 5.5 sounds tempting, but at the same time, I don't know if you should just go 0.5 more for Raya, for example. So I don't know what you think. Obviously, whole world has Haaland. Not worth talking about. Anyone else from City for you? Foden,
I guess. I think Foden is an interesting one. That you've mentioned majority of the ones that people are considering. I just think Foden, like it's split the community quite a bit. I feel, because we obviously all know that that quote that has made its rounds around the community saying Vardiol, Foden, and Haaland being the central pillars. Like that has made its rounds, but exactly how Foden is going to be used, we don't know. There's one. Secondly, how secure are his minutes? Nobody also knows. So despite Enzo Maresca saying that they are key central pillars, I think one half of the community cannot fully put a pin on it as to how long they think Foden would play in a particular match, how good his minutes are. And then the other half is like, oh no, they've said he's a central pillar to the City team. Get him in right now. So I think that's two camps that I'm seeing. I'm kind of taking a bit more of a balanced view, I would say. Like I'm not someone that would write him off, because Foden is Foden. Like we know how good he is on his day, right? Unplayable when he's in that kind of purple patch that we know he can go on. So I just need to see first, as always with Man City assets, I need the minutes to be there. And because I can't be sure, then 7 million feels very expensive. If I have another 7 million asset from a team we just discussed, which is Szoboszlai, and I'm going to get a nailed starter on set pieces, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, I mean, Foden is the only player that I would say we didn't mention too much just now. But yeah, someone that I would have at the back of my mind, maybe not right from the get-go.
Why not both? Is my question, right? And a bit of a spoiler, but we'll get to that. For me, I agree. I think Foden's an interesting one. I actually want to ask you a kind of an interesting question, right? Because it's Maresca. Back in Chelsea, how often does Maresca play around with the teams? Because I think one thing that has been an FPL kind of basically meme at this point is the Pep roulette. And I think in terms of the attacking assets of City, it's almost never fixed, because Pep likes to rotate his attackers and keep them fresh, apart from Haaland and to a certain extent De Bruyne. So Foden was never really a big asset to hold for the season because he always has small purple patches, as you said. And it's one of those things that you need to catch him when he runs hot because he just goes nuts. Double digit pointers like back-to-back weeks, right? So now with Maresca coming in, does he like to play with a fixed 11 or does he rotate players back in Chelsea time? Because that could translate to, if truly Foden is in that spine, then we could see a 38 game week starter Foden, which could be amazing.
Okay, so I'll speak from Chelsea perspective because Maresca was at Chelsea for a while. Like, I think he has those few players that he will start regularly, but I think because he operates with that kind of philosophy that he kind of, I would say understudied, right? He understudied Pep. And so in Chelsea, there were some, games out of the blue that someone like Cucurella, I recall this quite clearly. Cucurella, a very nailed left back for us. And then all of a sudden, I see some people bring him in and then boom, next week, he's not playing. So, and there's no real explanation for this, which happens sometimes with Pep as well. So I don't even dare to say he would do the same thing with someone like Foden. But the truth of the matter is that I just don't know. And
okay.
And with Enzo Maresca, I think he's going to operate on a similar philosophy as he did in Chelsea. So yeah, that's for Foden, but also something that you mentioned just now, which I think is going to be quite interesting. Last season, Foden went on this crazy run, right? And I didn't bring him in. I took maybe 1 or 2 game weeks to bring him in. Do you know how much value I lost on Phil Foden? You just hazard a guess.
How much value?
Because he rose so quickly last season during his purple patch. You guess how much I lost?
0.4.
Higher.
0.8.
Nah, that's too high. 6. I lost 0.6 million on Phil Foden last season. That is crazy. Yeah. So I mean, but that's the worry that I have also. Like maybe playing a bit at the back of my mind is like once he goes on that run, I'm getting him. Like not even thinking twice. So
he's definitely a kind of run hot player. And if we can see him get regular minutes as the spine of this team, so called, he will more likely hit these patches, right? Rather than hope to hit one coming off the bench. So I think quite interesting. I'm even going to shout out VJ's question, Foden over Anderson. I am not as big of a fan of Anderson anymore. Partially because in a City team, you're not going to get as much chances for DEFCONs, which is Elliot Anderson's bread and butter. I think if you're going to be controlling the game 60-70% of every game in terms of possession, you're not really going to get much DEFCONs. That said, Anderson did have an insane amount of DEFCONs, right? So who knows? He might still get them. But for me, not to start the season. Okay. Yeah. I think that's enough about City. I think obviously worth talking a little bit more about because people do consider a lot of City assets. Next team, I'll take the lead on this, of course, United.
Please do.
I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts too, so I want to get your non-biased thoughts from you. I'm not going to talk about Bruno. I do see Bruno as the kind of other premium that everybody is looking to drop rather than Haaland. So that's interesting. I'm personally still have him. I think I'll rehash a little bit from last part, which is that he had a bad World Cup. I think he's raring to go. He's that kind of player where he wants to hit the ground running. He's a machine. He doesn't need a break, for example. And I think that the thing he has going for him is that a lot of the attackers around him are more bedded in. He'll have had about a season-ish of playtime with Šeško, Mbeumo, and Cunha, and Ahmad of it as well, right? In and around. So that's going to be quite encouraging. I don't know how Rashford's going to come back in, so that's going to be another point of contention. So at 8.0, your choice is either Mbeumo or Cunha. Second is kind of as the second attacker, and then people are talking about Maguire versus Shaw. That's essentially it. Some people, maybe a few teams, going with Lamans in goal at 5.0. The reason why people are talking about United so much, fixtures. 2 promoted teams in the first 3 with Everton in the third, you really can't like it better than that. And this plays into a chip strategy as well, right? A lot of people are going hard the first 3 game weeks, which means you could wildcard out of your United players by game week 4. And I think that's pretty common strategy that a lot of people have because I still think a lot of people don't rate United, as a 3-player team to have year like season long, and I think that's fair. I've got how often does Sesko play? Is VJ's question, and I think not very often. But that's because he was.
Yeah, I'll add on to that
Please,
also.
please go.
Yeah, I'll add on with Sesko, Cunha, and Mbumo. Who do you think has the best minutes? I'll supplement VJ's question.
Mbomo, by far. I think Mbomo is the hardiest of the three. So the only reason why Sesko and Cunha doesn't play so much is I think they're a little bit more frail, and I think they will need minute management. But also, Mbomo does seem to be played a little bit more freely in the sense that he can play on the right wing, he can play up front. When they're both available, it does seem like Carrick prefers Mbuemo up front instead of Cunha up front. And I do tend to agree. I think Cunha's better off the wing. That said, I do think Sesko has bulked up a lot. I think people were kind of passing on photos of his kind of workout, like post-workout body. And if that's true, I see him being fitter this season, I hope. And he's going to be huge because we've lacked a really good in the air presence for a long time in the box for us. VJ saying Burma has good stats as well. So yeah, I'll quickly run through some of the questions because I think Henry has one as well. Ahmad and Dorgu will play as winger or wing back. So Carrick is not really a 3 at the back manager. So the Emery days are over. We won't really have that wing back strategy as often anymore, which means that if it's going to be a 4-2-3-1, the only place that I see Ahmad playing is probably right wing. Maybe in the 10 or in some weird scenarios at most. Dorgu would either be left back or left wing. I think he's shown that he can play left wings when called upon, and he had a pretty good run of games. So those are the 2 positions for that. Hope I answered your questions. Okay, so that's my take. Shaw over Maguire for me because cheaper. That's all.
Yeah, I see yes MK6515 saying he saw a stat that Bruno doesn't start the season good. That's an interesting one.
I've not really heard that very often. The only thing I've heard that for a player is Kane. Do you remember where Kane always had the August curse, where he basically never scored in August and then starts banging it in September?
September, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember Bruno struggling that much in the start of the season. But that said, I do think that having a World Cup season, summer means that he is a little bit warmer to go. That's my take.
Yeah. I think nothing else to add here for United. You already mentioned that the first 3 fixtures are great. So we'll definitely talk about it in the chip strategy section, which should be quite soon. I think we can move on to...
God, right. Let's quickly move on. Newcastle. Yeah. I'm avoiding Newcastle like the plague. How it's gone. Bruno Guimaraes might be heading to Arsenal. We didn't even talk about that on the Arsenal side. They lost to Nali. I don't know what's going on at Newcastle, to be honest. Fans have been calling for the management to leave for a long time as well. There's a lot of unhappiness. And I thought the only thing kind of steadying the ship for them was Howe. Now that Howe is gone, he's at best, okay, to be fair, I think he's at best a above average manager. I don't think he's world class. I don't think he's what Newcastle needed to bring them to top 4, which is what
Champions
I think
League though. Champions League though they played.
They did. But I don't think it's like they will be in Champions League for a long time kind of deal.
Yeah. It's a one season kind of thing then. Yeah.
And it was because other teams weren't doing well, if I'm not wrong, that season. That season I think like United was horrible. Liverpool didn't play well that season as well, I think. So that's it for me. No one from Newcastle interests me right now.
Josh says Ursula, FPL Josh.
So Ursula's at 6.0 if I'm not wrong. Interesting option, but too many 6.0s to compete with at the moment. Down the road, maybe. Wait and see. Harvey Barnes, obviously 6.0. Also interesting down the road. Not to start the season for me. Sorry, I'm trying to go quicker. But anything from you, Newcastle?
Yeah, nah. Not anytime soon. If anything, it'll be in game week 5 when they have Hull at home and then Coventry away in game week 6. If anything, in the first 4 game weeks, if they do well, then I will be there in game week 4 if I wildcard. So if I'll be very
definitely
surprised. Definitely not doing anything yet. Yeah.
Okay, 3 more to go. Let's go. Nottingham Forest. Do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for Forest, I think a lot of the talk so far has been around Igor Jesus up front. And then there's Nico Williams, who is playing super attacking under Oliver Glasner. And people are, willing to pay the extra 5 million for him because they think that he's going to be the Munoz of Nottingham Forest now. Which, I mean, I can see the similarities, like very athletic, right? Nico Williams, not afraid to charge down the wing. And he could be that kind of, Daniel Munoz kind of player that people imagine him to be. And I see the appeal. The only thing is the fixtures. I don't think the cleans are going to be there, right? It's Liverpool away and then Aston Villa away in 2 and 4 respectively. They play Tottenham in between that as well. So actually, if you look on it as a whole, like maybe the first 4 game weeks of fixtures are really not good. And then after that, as I said, like people will start to consider wildcards already. Then you can bring them in, right, for Coventry at home in game week 5, etc. So it gives you time to assess. Defenders wise, aside from Nico Williams, people are looking at Aina at 4.5, but there's some talk as to whether his minutes are going to be secure. Don't really know about that. So again, hard to say exactly who we should target aside from Nico Williams, who I think would be secure, and then Igor Jesus. I think just going back a little bit to Igor Jesus is also that he's done very well in preseason, but we don't really know if he can carry this into the Premier League. And I think that's the main reason why people are iffy about him.
That's fair. I love Chris Wood. I hope he comes back and scores a few hitters. I'm ready to get Chris Wood at some point. Love the guy. But yeah, I think you basically covered everything. I like Glasner as a manager as well. So hopefully he gets Forest cooking, which could mean Nico Williams is a good. Most people are saying that Nico Williams will likely be the Munoz rather than Aina. So that's what I've heard so far. Sells at 5.0 is also a stay away from.
Avoid.
Okay, let's go. Spurs. I think we have to spend a bit of time on Spurs. Spurs is very interesting.
1 minute for every signing.
1 minute. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so that's still going to be many minutes. But basically, I will rehash. Spurs is a trap to start the season. I want to give them a time to kind of bid in, how they're going to play. Tricky thing is they have pretty decent fixtures to start the season. Again, Brentford, it's a bit like, Grays, right? And against a kind of disarrayed Newcastle as well. So I do think there are some goals in there, but who's going to score them? Is it going to be Matheus Fernandes? Is it going to be Richarlison? Is Solanke fit? I don't know. Fun fact is that Tonali scored 0 goals in his whole time in Newcastle, if I'm not wrong, right? And then
I think he did a few, maybe one or two.
Maybe one or two is very little.
I do recall him scoring goals because those were bangers, but I don't think he got
very
a lot.
Few and far between, right? Because I think he was kind of sitting back. But then preseason for Spurs, he's already scored. So who knows? Maybe he's more upfront, like a more attacking, more offensive minded, which could mean that he comes good. I love Xavi Simons. I think he's a great player. So when he comes back from injury, I think that'd be cool. That'd be good for Spurs. Who else am I missing here? If the links with Savinho, Cody Gakpo come in, they essentially have a new team. I really don't know what to make of this new team other than on paper, it's brilliant. Defensively, Porro, Jet Spence, both fine. I heard a rumor just today that Spence might be on the way out. Who knows? There's just a lot of chatter about Spurs and a lot of excitement, deservedly by their fans. I just don't know what to make of them, which is why I do think there are a wait and see for me, even at their really low prices.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's just all over the place. And that's why I think aside from Kinski, I think we are all waiting and seeing, right? So I honestly don't have much more to say other than the fact that it feels a bit like they're playing FPL or in real life. They're buying all the players and putting them together, but who knows how they would gel, right? So it has to be a wait and see for me. Other than Kinski.
No, I agree. Kinski, just to kind of remind everyone who wasn't here at the first pod or didn't hear it, I have a weird feeling they'll kind of bring someone in to replace Vicario. If Vicario's not going to be first choice, I think he's going to leave. And that could mean bringing someone in.
I
I
think
don't
he's
think
on
he
the way
broadcast.
out already, like quite soon.
Yeah,
He didn't even do the preseason with them because he's on the way out.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that means that it's either Dubravka is second choice, which I don't think so. I think he's third choice, which means that I think someone could potentially come in and challenge Kinski. So I don't think Kinski is 100% nailed to be the starting keeper for Spurs season long. That's it. Without any more news, I think he is still starting keeper, so that's worth thinking about. Madison, I don't know. Is he back? I guess he is back and fit, but I love Madison. Just don't know where he's going to fit in this Spurs team and if he's going to hit the ground running. So once again, wait and
Too
see. Not for game.
too many attackers. Too many attackers. Too
Really,
many
really
options.
too many,
Too
and
many ways that they can play. So
yeah, it's true. You said, it's like kind of making an FPL team. United was basically doing that. Like every season, they were just buying the top FPL like producers, Cunha, Mbuemo, and it does well for them. So we like it. Okay,
yeah.
let's round it up. I'm so sorry,
Sunderland.
everybody in the chat. I know we're overrunning. We're gonna do chip strategy after this first draft, and we're done. Right? So Sunderland, the so-called 17th place team, touted to be 17th place team. I'll just quickly run through this. Let me know if you have anything to add. Brian Brobby, 6.0 forward. I like him a lot. I do think he had a very good second half last year. Enzo Lefebvre, some people are saying he is basically Sunderland's Kevin De Bruyne. Basically linking up everything, very involved in every attack. At 6.0, I think he's very popular, and I think a lot of people might have him to start. Reason being, look at the first three fixtures: Ipswich away, Fulham home, Brentford away. That's the biggest kind of advertisement for Sunderland, right? And especially if you're doing that game week for Wildcard, just nice. You get rid of them before the Arsenal City run as well. So I think that's a good shout. Obviously, Mukiele Rolfs as well. And I think someone in the chat shouted ballad really loudly just now. So
Yes.
Shout out to him as well. Anything from you?
No. Yeah, I think you nailed it. The fixtures, the opening three fixtures is the main appeal of Sunderland assets, and someone like Brian Brobby is very appealing. I think with Sunderland, it plays together with chip strategy. Like if you are delaying chips and not using it very soon, especially a wild card, I think you would then look at a longer horizon. And from game week 1 to 6, it doesn't look very good because you have to include those Arsenal and Man City fixtures. But if you're only doing the first 3 and then you wild card in game week 4, suddenly Sunderland looks like a team that you maybe want to go double, right? Maybe double. I would say triple is like maybe too far, but double at least if you're looking only to target the first 3 game weeks. So a bit of a spoiler is that I do have Enzo Lefebvre. I'll speak more about him later when we discuss my team. But yeah, that's all for Sunderland.
I'm going to start calling him Elf. Somebody put Elf in their kind of rate my team just now, and I'm like, who? I thought for like a good minute, who's Elf? Then I realized it's Enzo Lefebvre. Such an easy way to say his name quick, right? So yeah, I'm going to call him Elf for like the rest of the season. That's a good one. Okay, that's it.
I've seen a question from Josh. Like, let me just get to this one.
Okay.
Hume, yeah, playing right wing, 4.5. I've seen a couple of tweets on Hume already. He's quite an under the radar option, I would say. He's out of position, right? Because listed as a defender, but going to play right wing. I just don't know if that is going to be his position for the whole season. Like, is that something that trying out? Will he maybe then progressively as the season goes on, maybe shift further back to his natural position, which is not so far forward, basically, right? And then his appeal then just goes down a little bit. So that's my thoughts on him. I think 4.5 is also a very forgiving price point. So if anything and you want to gamble at the start, I don't mind it. It's more a case where it could be a transfer that's waiting to happen. But again, if you are looking at the first 3, maybe it's worth the gamble. If you're looking to really just go different somewhere. But yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else to add for Sunderland. I could go on to chip strategy if Nick, you have anything else to add here?
Just a quick reminder to everyone that preseason is still happening. Keep a very close eye out. I think preseason is very, very important to kind of see where these players are at, where these managers are at. Obviously, don't take it like kind of like everything, like don't take it wholesale. There will be changes made from that. The most accurate game you're probably going to get is the Community Shield. I mean, there's only 2 teams. But that's it. Just hopefully everybody keep your mind open. Don't be too fixed onto your first drafts. We'll talk about ours later. But before that, chip strategy. Take it away, Leon.
Yeah, so I'm going to show a graphic on screen. Okay, so this is highlighting mainly the best fixtures for, I guess, the few teams that are in consideration these first 6 game weeks. You'll see Coventry there mainly because they are part of the bench boost 2 strategy as well. So I'll speak about chip strategy chip by chip. So I want to speak first about the bench boost. And Nick, feel free to chime in at any point in time, right?
Will do.
So yeah, I'll speak about bench boost first. I think I just have three main reasons that I feel is why people are considering the bench boost early, either in game week 1 or game week 2. If anyone has other reasons, drop it in the chat. But for me, the first reason I'd say, in no particular order, of course, the first reason I would say is people just want to get rid of the chip. Like this chip is very difficult to plan for because sometimes in previous seasons we set up for it with a wild card in just before the bench boost, and then you bench boost and end up how many points do you get? 7 points, right? From 4 players on the bench. So it's the kind of chip that you may not get so much points from it as you imagine, but the amount of planning, etc., maybe it's not worth it, right? To go through all that trouble, get it out of the way. That's the first thing, right? And the other thing, right, is the keeper situation. So this season, we haven't seen any 4.0 million keepers yet. There's no Dubravka from Burnley that we saw last season, right? Because if Dubravka is in the game at 4.0 million and plays every week, then it's kind of a similar situation last season where we can just wait. We can just wait and see any game week that we decide we want to Burnley has a good enough fixture. Okay, bench boost. Like my bench looks good. Okay, bench boost. This season, if you want to bench boost, because there's no 4 million keeper, then you have to go up to 4.5 to at least have everyone on your bench playing. And that means more money on your bench. So that's not great. And that's also why people just want to get it out of the way, either in game week 1 or 2, and then just wild card shortly after, either in game week 4 or game week 6, take the money out of your bench and then put it into the starting 11. Right. So that's another reason. And the last one is the fixtures, because the fixtures are actually their target. Right. Game week 1, if you want to bench boost, then there's Sunderland versus Ipswich that you could go for. You could go for Issa Diop. You could go for a couple of Sunderland assets as well. Hume, right, that Josh just mentioned just now, or even you look at Broby or the Sunderland keeper, Roofs. These are players that you could go for to attack that fixture. So that's one. It's for game week 1. For game week 2, the fixtures are also there to target, right? The Coventry and Hull one that we spoke about. And this is, I would say, the more popular bench boost week, mainly because the Coventry players are much cheaper than the Sunderland players. So literally you could bench boost and not be afraid to just have that bench for the next few game weeks until you wildcard, right? It's not much money on there anyways. If you have a Thomas and maybe a Van Iwick, then there's pretty much 2 defensive options there. One good for DEFCON, one good for attacking returns. And yeah, I mean, pretty much that's already half your bench sorted. So that's one of the main reasons why game week 2 is a very popular bench boost window also. So I would say for game week 1 and 2, popular bench boost weeks. And I would say when I've seen a couple of polls, 60 to 70% prefer 2 over 1. And another poll that I've seen as well is that more people are leaning towards an early bench boost than I imagine. It's not huge, right? Because some people still prefer to play the more pragmatic way and leave chips for later on. But there's an increase this season I've seen of people being willing to use their bench boost early. So any thoughts on what you've heard so far?
A lot to process, and I am one of the more practical players. You kind of called out. I tend to leave my chips later in the kind of usage window. So even when they released 2 sets of chips, one first half, one second half, I found myself always scrambling to find a chance to use that first set of chips. So I can see why people are slowly pivoting towards using them early, especially the bench boost. Bench boost is such a tricky one to use early season because theoretically game week 1 is a free wild card because you kind of start with a team that you really, really want, and you can kind of change all of it with that actual wild card. I can see why people just want to hedge on those first few really good fixtures. I'm considering myself as well. for now, as you'll see my first draft later, it's still very much not geared towards that. But I will give it a shot in the next week or two just to kind of entertain the idea of having that wild card, the bench boost early on. I also have a question for you. It's a little bit abstract, maybe like more mini-league centric, which is when you fall behind early in the season, do you feel pressured to kind of make changes to kind of try and catch up? Reason being, I can foresee people who use a bench boost get off to a really good start, right? I mean, that's what the bench boost is for. And therefore, people who kind of fall behind, do they just patiently wait and think it's a marathon, I will get my points later? Or do they immediately start looking for differentials? Because that could be a weird mindset switch as well, where if you start hunting differentials early, it could backfire and you could just fall into the abyss and never come back. So I'm just wondering if that plays into your chip strategy at all, whereas just launching yourself forward is the way to go to start the season.
Okay, so for my own chip strategy, I initially started with a non-bench boost strategy, and then now I'm on a bench boost 2 strategy. I'll more on my actual strategy in the draft, but just to answer your question as a whole about how people should react, whether it's mini leagues, etc. I would think about it as don't be rash. Basically, that's the short version of it. But the longer version of it is, I think you have your strategy right from the start, right? If you didn't use it in game week 1 or game week 2, there has to be a reason why. Either you felt that using it later on would gain you a greater advantage, or you just have other plans for it. You have other, strategies that you want to work out, and that could work, right? We don't know what happens yet. Right in front of you, if you're falling behind and you immediately change strategy just to quickly react to it, and it doesn't work out, you fall even further behind. So I would say that you have your own strategy. I would let it play out first. Only if that is very, very far beyond, and you feel like, because there's a balance, sometimes you need to react quick enough in FPL. But I think overall, stick to your strategy. There's a reason why you did it. And if you reach a point where you feel like you're falling off a cliff already, and your team needs that help, I think it would be clear enough, it would be obvious enough, and that's when you can start to pull some chips. That would be my longer response to it.
No, thanks for that. I think that helps a lot. And yeah, just curious whether you even thought about. I see nobody talk about it. Would you use triple captain early?
That's interesting. Okay, I'll leave this for later, because pretty much triple captain, it comes down to two teams and 2 players. So I'll leave it for later. But yeah, I'll get back to that one. So I'll speak about wildcard first, if that's okay, because we've just covered the bench boost for game week 1 and 2. Wildcard, guys, I'll just we'll put it out there. Game week 2 is definitely too early, right? The transfer window hasn't closed yet, so I see no reason why you need to wildcard so early. And a lot of teams could change, right? In game week, if you wildcard in game week 2, you essentially only have 1 game week to go by. But when it comes to the opening few games of the Premier League, it's very easy for managers to just switch things up, right? So I would say game week 2 wildcard is out of the window. Right now for game week 3, the only reason why I would say a wildcard could be appealing there is for only a certain profile of FPL teams, and that's the ones that have no Haaland. If you've decided to go without Haaland from the start, game week 3 will appeal to you, okay, for whatever reasons, right? Because maybe your game week 1 bench boost or your game week 2 bench boost, you decided to spread out the money and go for a stronger, maybe a stronger bench. Like in that case, maybe you don't have Haaland in your team. And then in game week 3, you wildcard Haaland back in, right? And you have him for the rest of the however long, right? So that's the profile of teams that I would say a wildcard 3 appeals to. So for those in the chat, I guess, who are going no Haaland, is wildcard 3 the window you're looking at? I'll be interested to know. The downside of wildcard 3 is Arsenal versus Chelsea. Because you see, Arsenal versus Chelsea here is a tricky game. In game week 4, Chelsea has Hull. And this is that switch that I'm talking about. In game week 3, when you wildcard, how many Chelsea players do you want? You don't want that many. because they're playing Arsenal away. But then suddenly in game week 4, you want all of them. You want triples. You want triple Chelsea, right? So in game week 3, if you're wildcarding, I think that's the tricky part of how many Chelsea assets would you go for against Arsenal so that you are prepared for Hull. That's game week 3. Any thoughts on wildcard 3, Nick?
No, really, like I think you've said it quite accurately. I can see why people want to do it because there is a pretty good chain of good games for like bringing in Chelsea, bringing in Liverpool, and kind of set you up pretty well for the rest of the first half of the season. But I don't think I know enough to kind of say that there's a better time or a worse time to do it, right? I just fundamentally, to me, it feels like a shame that you are only like your first, you mull over this first draft for so long preseason, and then you only use them for 3 game weeks. It might be irrational. It might not be the way to think about it, and why I have low ranks over the years. But yeah, for me, it doesn't make sense. I do think that you would give them a few more game weeks. I think a game week 4 onwards might be interesting. But yeah, I think about the game week 3 wildcard list similar to what you said about game week 2 wildcard, right? Which is that it just seems too soon. And you're just choosing players for 1 or 2 game weeks, which is a high risk strategy. Could work out for some, but I think it's not for me.
Yeah, fair. So game week 4 and game week 5 is pretty much going to be a similar team, right? Because your wildcard team in game week 4, you're going to be targeting the same teams as your wildcard team in game week 5. So why not just bring it 1 week earlier, right? And you already have 3 game weeks worth of information. So for game week 4, I feel like it will be the most popular windows are the first few game weeks, mainly because that's your chance to start going heavy on Arsenal, right? Maybe you only have 1 defender that you started the season with. Now is the time to go for double Arsenal defense and whichever Arsenal attacker that you decide to go for. So that's the game week 4 attractiveness wild card. But also there is downside, right? There is downside here for game week 4. Oh, before I go for the downside, I see that Chelsea has Hull also, so this is a perfect time for you to triple up on Chelsea, right? And by then you would know whether Palmer or Rodgers is the one you prefer, right? So downside here is Man City versus Manchester United. These are teams that I guess if Manchester United are doing well, right, against Hull and Ipswich, you expect them to do well against Everton as well. How many are you willing to let go of, right? Do you want to have a few? But sadly, they're playing Manchester City, and Manchester City is a team that you definitely still want to have a few players from. So in that wild card for game week 4, you're going to have a few Man City players and a few Manchester United players that are playing against each other. I don't think it's the end of the world because longer term, these are still players that you want in your team. But there's just something to add a bit of downside to the game week 4 wild card. That's pretty much it for game week 4, game week 5. Any thoughts on this?
No, I just wanted to point out Yes MK's question, which is wildcard is a powerful chip, but just save transfers and take a -4 in game week 4. So I'm not a big fan of hits, first of all. But this particular reason is actually the reason why some people are wildcarding early. Because the reason why I say that is because people actually realize that you don't have to save your wildcard for later on, because now you can bank up to 5 transfers, right? Which means that you wildcard early, right, into a team that you're quite confident will last you a good 4 to 5 game weeks, and you save up that 5 free transfers to do a pseudo wildcard, right? It's like half your team can be swapped out in maybe the third quarter or the last quarter of the first half, and that really goes a long way. So I think that kind of that shift towards having 5 free transfers banked actually helps an early wildcard narrative. In fact, that's what I would say. Sorry, please go ahead. I do want to be mindful of time, so we should kind of wrap up the chip strategies too.
Yeah, so I mean, lastly, it's just Wildcard 6 then, because Wildcard 6 is after the very long international break. 19 September is game week 5, all the way until 10 October is then the next game week deadline. So it's a very long period of time. Players going to get injured, as we always see during the international breaks, etc. So that's also a very popular wildcard window. Beyond that, I think 7, 13, 16. I've looked at those fixtures and I see that those are, weeks that could be wildcard windows if you have it then still. But yeah, I mean, we're not going to look too far. First 6 game weeks, I think those are the windows that we have seen. So that's pretty much it, right, for wildcards. I don't have anything else to add on for wildcards here. Nick, anything?
No, that's very comprehensive. Thanks for kind of doing all the research. I'm pretty sure we'll talk about all the future options later on as well. So do kind of join us throughout the season. We'll do this kind of week on week. So yeah, let's go.
Yeah, and I think free hit is pretty much those kind of. I've seen people use the free hit in a more aggressive way, which is just to avoid those fixtures that we spoke about. Right, in game week 3, you have Arsenal versus Chelsea. Remove those players. Put your money elsewhere just for that 1 week. Same for game week 4, you have City versus United. In game week 6, I think there's Liverpool, Man City, right? So pretty much those weeks where I feel like for free hit, it's going to be popular mainly for people who are looking to use their wildcards later on, right? Then you want to just tide through those tough fixtures that I mentioned, right? Game week 3, game week 4, or even in game week 6, use a free hit there. I feel it could be a waste. That's my thoughts. It could be a waste. It could be better to save it for later on, is currently my, I guess, premature thoughts on the free hit chip.
Free hit for me is the toughest one to use properly, I feel. Obviously, second half, there's always that weird blank game week that everybody uses it for, so that's okay. The first half is always a crapshoot. I think it's reserved for one of those weeks, which is like, I like my team, but I hate my team this week, right? That's just the way I like to think about it. There will be some weeks where you come across, you're like, hey, why are my players all playing each other? And I think those are the weeks that might justify a free hit in the first half. That's it for me. I don't have a very specific strategy for free hit, especially in the first half. I don't think it's a particularly useful chip for me.
Yeah. So the last chip that we will speak about is the triple captain chip. And as I mentioned just now, 2 teams and 2 players that we're looking at. The 2 teams is Hull and Ipswich that we want to target. Mm-hmm. And the 2 players that you will want to play against those teams is Haaland and Bruno. I think is straightforward, right? So it's pretty much the windows that I've considered. I mean, you could go rogue, right? You could go elsewhere. People are saying maybe from Liverpool you could consider Isak if he does well. Like a lot of this is subject to whatever we see later on in the season. But at least early thoughts for triple captain is any week that Haaland or Bruno plays Hull or Ipswich is a week to consider, especially at home. So you see for Man City, Coventry at home in game week 3 Coventry is not a team that I mentioned just now because they have slightly better defense, but it's one option you could go for. United plays Hull in game week 1. I don't think people would be so brave to start game week 1 with a triple captain, but straight away in game week 2 there's Ipswich, right, for United. So already a couple of windows there. But the real windows, I would say, for triple captain is further down the line. It's not pictured in this graphic here, but later down the line, as I've mentioned, where Hull or Bruno play Hull or Ipswich at home, those are going to be very popular triple captain windows.
I think you said it. I don't think there needs much to be said about Haaland and Bruno. I'll be a little bit contrarian just for the sake of it. Devil's advocate here, and actually, I would say that Bruno is probably not a very good triple captain option. I do see Bruno as a kind of machine that trudges along all season long. You can get basically a goal or an assist every game, and he's going to be very consistent for you. He will have a few, like maybe 1 or 2 kind of big hauls, maybe, but traditionally speaking, I don't think he's that kind of player. And on the converse, I would say that an interesting shout, other than Haaland, might be someone like a Saka, might be someone like a Foden, where if they're in an unstoppable purple patch, and they somehow run into a Hull at home, go for it. I would say that is a huge differential that you could really capitalize on, rather than trying to find that Bruno Hull home and then Mbeumo scores 1, Kuna scores 1, Sesko scores 2, and then then Bruno has 1 assist. That could very well happen, is what I'm saying, right? Whereas I think the ceiling is a lot higher for a lot of other players. as and when even a Palmer down the road could be interesting. That's what I'll say for a contrarian kind of view.
Yeah, I mean it's the chip that requires the least planning, right? You look at your captain for that week, and if you think that it's really a great fixture that you have a good feeling about, it could even be a gamble, right?
Yep, it's true.
Yep. Okay, so I think that's it. Yeah, that's it for triple captain and also our whole pretty much chip strategy portion. So I guess we can end this off with we'll probably end off nice at the 2 hour mark, I guess. But we could start off, Nick, with your draft first. So it's on screen right now.
All right, first draft of the season. I am very excited. This is actually my official second draft. I'm very excited to kind of share this with all of you guys. So thanks for staying all the way, by the way, for a lot of you who have been listening into almost 2 hours. It's kind of nuts. We'll try to keep it shorter next time. I swear. We'll really try. Okay, I'll run through real quick. Keepers. I do have a rotating keeper strategy now between Kinski and Verbruggen. I don't know if I like that. I've been burnt by Verbruggen and by a rotating keeper strategy before. I don't particularly love it, but that's what I have for now. It gives me flexibility because I can still move into a 5.0, 4.0, one keeper strategy. I can even do a 4.0, 4.5, 4.0 strategy to start the season and free up 0.5 somewhere else. That might be what I end up with. But if I do go with do pivot to a bench boost, right? I could potentially be, happy with having both Kinski and Verbruggen playing. That's where I'm at for keepers. Okay, nothing, not much to say there. Defense, Mosquera is in till someone comes in for Arsenal. This is more of a long-term play, as you can tell. I didn't really plan for a wildcard, so Mosquera is in. I don't think Gabriel is worth it for the season. Even if he starts scoring, I think, I just don't feel like the 8 million is worth it. Mosquera 5.5, good start for me. Shaw 4.5, quite unbeatable value for the first 3 amazing fixtures of United. Most people are just between Shaw and Maguire. I have Shaw 0.5 cheaper. Jake, yes, I mentioned this earlier, so I won't go too much about it again. He's at 5.0. Saved me the 1.5 I needed to move elsewhere in the team, essentially, because I had Virgil before this. Not too sure if I will continue on with a Liverpool defender to begin with, to be honest, until maybe Virgil and Jake really gel as a pair. I do think this is probably that kind of season-long pairing that they're working towards. I don't think Gomez will come back in. So if he doesn't, I can kind of switch to like a Nico Williams, or maybe even drop down to an interesting 4.5 as a punt, for example. Right. To finish up, I have both Diop and Thomas as kind of enablers to begin with. Don't love that I have 2 kind of really cheap options there, but I think that's the way to go if I'm gonna go the long route, right, without an early wildcard. So Thomas for DEFCON, as I mentioned, over Van Uyck, and Diop just in there because I think every now and then he might prop up with a random DEFCON or 2 and maybe the odd goal or so from a set piece. Now on to my defense.
Yeah, before you go on to midfield, can I just ask, because I know you have 0.5 left, right, in the bank?
No, I don't.
For this draft. Oh,
I think I'm
because I was wondering, or is there any way that you can eke out some money for Shaw up to Maguire? Is the only thing I'm considering here, because as a United fan, I recall that you mentioned Maguire being good for set piece threat now that Casemiro is not here. So is he maybe worth it 0.5 if you can eke it out, from somewhere?
Okay, so I'm dumb. You're right. That's actually 0.5. But I think before I upgrade Shaw to Maguire, I would more likely maybe upgrade one of Diop or Thomas, actually.
To get better bench cover.
Yeah, I don't love Maguire. Yes, I do think he is now our main set piece threat now that Casemiro is gone. But strangely enough, I don't think Maguire has been that good on headers, even though he is our slap hit. Weird, really weird. I don't know what's gotten into it. I think
they've been targeting Casemiro more, right? I feel last season.
Casemiro gets on the end of set pieces really well, much better than Maguire, to be honest. I also think that Casemiro is a little bit especially for the early part, kind of underlooked because everyone knows to mark out Maguire, right? They put 2 or 3 bodies on him, and then potentially that's where Casemiro gets a bit more free. We'll see. I think there's a lot of changes that will happen to the United defense as well. So both Shaw and Maguire might not be long-term picks depending on how it goes. Shaw might get injured. The lid might come back, for example. So much to consider there. Jake to Kirkes, yes, MK is asking. Yes, I do think Kirkes is one that is on my mind at 0.5, and potentially, even more offensive season under Iraola. Yeah, it's a good shot. I just put Jake in because I think he's a cheap way into Liverpool defense for now, and I would like to see more from Liverpool preseason. Okay, moving on to midfield, right? So I've kind of loaded my midfield a little bit more. I've done the double United with Mbeumo and Bruno to start the season. I will likely move off from one of them, especially if they don't do well this first 3, because if they don't do well the first 3, likely they might not do well against better opponents. So that's where I'm looking at for now. Foden as the so-called spine of Maresca's team. Also a wait and see from the preseason to see how many minutes he gets and in what role he plays, right? I do really like Foden as a player. I actually think that it's a bit of a shame that he dropped off a little bit in the last few seasons for Pep. But he's a great player for me. And if he gets on a good run, I definitely want to have him. Szoboszlai, don't need to talk much more. I'm talking myself out of it, if you noticed just now, with the only 2 pens. And potentially, I have a 0.5 in the bank. I could just upgrade him towards straight away as well. So once again, toss up. But I have Szoboszlai to begin with. I think he's an incredible player, and he's going to get basically all the minutes. I don't think he's going to get subbed at any point of time as well. So if against kind of weaker opposition, likelihood he will probably drift up quite a lot to kind of support the attack. That's where I kind of see him maybe getting in a shot or 2, getting in good positions, and obviously taking set pieces. All right. Forward line, João Pedro, Haaland, self-explanatory, won't go into it. Only one is probably Brobbey over other 6.0 forwards, I mean. I like Brobbey because those starting fixtures are actually quite hard to ignore. So I do think that, I don't need to overplan the first 6 game weeks, right? 3 game week in, I am likely to get, 2 free transfers, maybe 3 free transfers if game week 4 comes around and I'm still happy with my team. That's when, kind of Brobbey drops off because of his fixtures, right? He has 2 really hard fixtures in 4 and 5. I can easily switch to DCL then. I can maybe see if there are other players that I want to shift to, make a double swap, for example. So that's flexible. I do like Brobbey to start the season over DCL as a bit of a differential almost. I do think the fixtures are better. And he did have a very decent World Cup, actually, with Netherlands. So hopefully he brings that into the start of EPL a little bit and get some assists from Enzo Lefebvre as well. So that's and Slater, sorry, my 5th mid. Purely an enabler. Hopefully some DEFCONs. Gonna sit dead last on the bench. Nothing more to say about that. Yeah, hope you like my draft. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think as a whole, when I look at this team, it definitely looks like a team that is set up for maybe 6 to even 8 game weeks if you really want to drag it that long. Right? It's definitely looking like that kind of a team. Which I think brings in a nice transition, I guess, segue to a different strategy, right? Which is, so I'm going to move on to my team just very quickly for us to wrap up. And this draft that I have is going to look slightly different, I feel. And it's mainly because I'm going for a bench boost 2 strategy. And even amongst the bench boost 2 strategy, I think it looks slightly different because I've gone for a 4-4-2 as the main formation for most weeks. So I'll go keepers first. I have Roves here from Sunderland because I rate the Sunderland defense, right? And I've decided to kind of spend my money elsewhere instead of going for Ballard because the only other defensive asset that I considered from Sunderland is Ballard and he's 5 million. I've chosen to go for Ayer here, who is 4.5 million. So save the 0.5. So I still want some Sunderland defensive cover, and that's Roves. The other keeper is is Rushworth here from Coventry, and it's mainly for the Hull fixture in game week 2 when I bench boost. Right, then you look at defense, I have Vardiel, Mosquera. I'll speak about these two first because both of them 5.5. I just really like the solidity that I would imagine that these two teams starting the season would have. Right, I look at the clean sheet odds as well. They're very strong and up there for the first few game weeks. So Mosquera and Vardiel here. I would imagine Vardiel playing in a slightly different way under Enzo Maresca. I don't think it's going to be as advanced. We saw the Vardiel of old when he was playing fullback. Right? I don't think we're going to see that, but maybe DEFCONs for him. Right, so Luke Shaw, I needed the extra 0.5. Right, with this draft, I needed the extra 0.5, so I've gone for Luke Shaw over Maguire. Ayer here also 4.5, just really cheap entry into the Brentford defense that is good for the first 3 game weeks. And this team, I can consider wildcarding in game week 4, and that would just get me out of Ayer because from game weeks 4 to 5 onwards, Brentford's fixtures aren't good. Right, Brentford's fixtures are only good for the first 3. So I could do that, or I could use a transfer and just get Ayer out if I intend to save the wild card for later on. So it's a bit flexible there, but that's the thinking behind those kind of defenders here. And the last one I have is Thomas on the bench, right? Again, Coventry for Hull against for Coventry against Hull. In midfield, I won't speak about the 3 that we already have in both of our drafts, which is Soboslai and Bumo and Bruno. I'll speak about Enzo Lefebvre because I want some Sunderland attack. Right, they have Ipswich in game week 1 and Leeds in game week 2. I want a piece of that. I don't have Brobby. I've decided to go for someone else as my third forward, which I'll speak about later on.
That, yes.
And that's why I want some Sunderland cover and Enzo Lefebvre on set pieces, pens, kind of the architect, as you mentioned, for Sunderland. So that's why I've gone for him there. He's not too expensive as well, right? Reasonably priced. So I'm okay to just go for him there. And then in up front, right, it's your standard 2. It's your João Pedro and your Haaland. So I've decided to go for Haji Wright here as a bit of a differential. I would say he's a differential, but I don't know how many people have him. I do think that it's funny you mentioned that against Hull they drew a goalless draw over the past 2 games that they had. But I just imagine that in the Premier League, the whole vibe is different. I expect that, Haji Wright, who is there, definitely their best attacker, could get some joy there. That's the only thinking, right? And I'm not fully set on it for sure. Like this third spot could end up being a Brobby eventually, or being a Calvert-Lewin. But for now, I'm thinking of gambling there. So that's the team, right? Keen to know a bit your thoughts, I think.
I have questions. Interesting team. Obviously, we overlap maybe about half the team. And that's not surprising. I think the tempered teams will emerge. Haji Wright's at 5.5, if I'm not wrong.
Yep.
So do you have 0.5 in the bank to go up to any? You don't, right? Okay. No. So who is first on the chopping block for you if you were to upgrade Haji Wright? I'm just curious.
Oh, if I go to a Brobby, then Enzo Lefebvre down is easy. Okay. If I go to a Brobby, I already have the Sunderland cover. I don't need to double up on the Sunderland attack. Then
Lefebvre will go down to like a Gross, I guess.
Like a 5.5. I mean, it could be Pascal Gross. It could be the other. I have Norgard that I didn't mention here. Actually, he's also
yes.
Yeah, he's like a DEFCON machine for me that I would imagine would just tick along. Right. But yeah, I feel like if I go down to a 5.5, there's a whole range of other 5.5 midfielders that I could go for. Right. The options are just open. Sangare from Brentford is also somebody I could consider.
Yep. No, that's fair. I pulled up the stats as well because I kind of shared it with the chat I was in. Let me check. For the April 6th game, the more recent game, Coventry versus Hull, unfortunately, Coventry had more possession at 55%, but the XG was 0.73, as opposed to Hull's XG, which was 1.56. Sometimes it's just some fun stats for you. But it flips. It flips for the previous meeting, 9th August, National Day, Singapore National Day last year, where Coventry had the possession lead for both, 58% here as well, but they had the 1.81 XG as opposed to Hull City 0.82. Both ended up 0-0, right? So kind of bore draws, but actually there were a lot of shots. For the more recent game, Hull City has 13 shots, 5 on target. Previous game, 18 shots by Coventry, 3 on target. So,
Okay.
the scoreline doesn't tell everything. I still think it's a pretty openish game where there were shots being taken from both teams. It was not like kind of sit back and kind of draw pressure kind of thing. So I think that's quite interesting. That you would kind of pick Haji, right? And I think he's the kind of main pick from Coventry if you want to do this triple up for the kind of Hull fixture in game week 2. I've seen people do triple defense, which I think is highly risky, right? You could do Rushworth, Thomas, and Van Nieuwijk, which is I've seen being done in some teams as well. So that's really interesting, and I think worth considering if you're on this early bench boost and then wildcard strategy. Other than that, I don't know. Okay, I'm surprised to see the Ayer pick. I think you hinted at it earlier. I don't know if I trust Brentford defense enough at this point. I have this weird feeling that every time I watch them, they feel solid, but they concede goals quite a bit as well. So I'm not too sure about that. And I guess the last thing for me from your thing is that you're currently having a 9.5 goalkeeper rotation purely for that bench boost, right? I assume you would jump out of one or the other, once you do your wildcard.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and on your point on Brentford defense as well, I'm mainly going for DEFCONs here, but I do feel like the fixtures could, present 1 or 2 clean sheets in the first 3. I think I'm good with that. Yeah, for 4.5 million Ayer. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And I actually quite like your team as well. That's an interesting thing. I think one point I said to you before this as well, and I think I'll share with the audience here, is that because they've put Haaland and Bruno in kind of like the clouds on their own, what that middle chunk looks like right now is actually there are a lot of very good backups to each other, which means that you drop a Szoboszlai, you have a Foden. You drop a Enzo Lefebvre, you have a Ndai or someone else like that, right? Which I think will make fantasy this year quite interesting. I don't think a template will be that straightforward and that clear cut, and there will be a lot of decision paralysis. You have to kind of pick between players, and sometimes it'll pan out, sometimes it won't, right? And I think that will make this season quite interesting because once you break out of those top 2, it's anybody's game. And I think there isn't an out and out kind of template that I see going around right now. I do want to kind of look at some of the questions. I know we've
maybe
really
we can. Yeah, we can take a couple. We can take 1 or 2.
We've over so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for kind of staying with us past 2 hours. We severely underestimated how much we have to talk about each team. But really appreciate it. I'll just kind of quickly go through. Maybe Leon, you can kind of pull up some as well to kind of show on the screen those that you find quite interesting. Then I'll kind of highlight some of those that I like as well. Welcome to the chat, Nicholas, as well. Missed you for most of the chat. Glad you managed to join us. I think only because we talked for so long. So you managed to catch us. But yes, I think none of us are considering the BB1. Leon is considering the BB2, and I am keeping my for later this season. So yes.
Yeah, but bench boost 1 is an option. I mean, it definitely is. Yeah, it is a valid option.
Yes.
It's just that for me, I prefer the bench boost 2 mainly because the players from Coventry are cheaper, and I can leave them on the bench pretty much. Like I don't have to immediately get rid of them if I so wish to hold them for a little bit longer. Most of my money will already be in the starting 11 either ways.
Yep, sure. Okay. Jared says, which other 4.5 is viable? This is a good question, but can I just clarify? Are you talking about midfielders or keepers or defenders?
I think defenders.
Probably defenders. It's a good question. 4.5 is an interesting range. Let me pull up my just thing real quick and see where we're at 4.5. So 4.5, I remember in my very first draft, just off the top of my head, I picked Medicash. Right, so if you think about it, Medicash and Konza are both 4.5 defenders from Villa. They don't have a good kind of fixture start, but they are popular options. Kadioglu. Someone mentioned Kadioglu from Brighton as an underlooked pick, and I agree. He is a wing, sort of like a wing back almost at some points for them. He attacks quite a bit. And I do trust Brighton defense. So if you're not on Bart Verbruggen, Kadioglu could be an interesting shout in defense. Mitchell as well. Mitchell is fair. Good point from Crystal Palace, but we chose to avoid Crystal Palace because we don't know where we're at with how Palace is looking, especially after Glasner left. Hume, I think we talked about Hume earlier in the chat as a potential out of position defender playing on the wing. Coyote.
I think Hume is interesting. This one. Yeah, I mean, we spoke about this one. Just so long as he's playing that out position, midfield position, and listed as a defender, I think it's an interesting shot. Yeah,
he should definitely go in. Actually, I agree. I'll go so far to kind of replace my Issa Diop with Hume, just so I can get it. Who else? Coyote, Rodon, Dunk. Yeah, actually, Mikolenko. There are quite a lot of 4.5 options. I don't think any of them are shout out like, oh, I must get them at the moment, which is why they're 4.5s. But that's a pretty good list for me. Okay. Any other questions, Leon, that you want to kind of highlight?
Nah, I think that's it. I think we also have gone on for quite a bit of time already. Yeah, so I guess we could call it a day for here. We will have plenty of time in the next pod as well to have a Q&A session. And just a bit of a spoiler, we also have a guest for the next pod. All right, so stay tuned for that. For those of you guys who have watched till this point, thank you very much. But yeah, we also have Q&A for next week. I hope you guys enjoyed today's pod, by the way. We rambled on so long, but that's because we wanted to cover each team, just share our thoughts, and also have a look at the fixtures and essentially discuss some chip strategy. So hopefully you guys found it useful. And Nick, anything to
I'm sorry.
Close off the pod for us.
I'm going to be really long-winded. I'm so sorry. Shout out is that we talked about it, and we probably will have a FPL Supper League set up for the start of game week 1. It hasn't been set up yet. No league code. I will share that with everybody either next pod or the pod right before game week 1 starts. That's what I have to say. And in general, I really want to appreciate all of you guys for staying. As you guys also have noticed, we will be kind of clipping a lot of these bites and pointer like things that along the way that we feel are worth making into shorts that will go on YouTube, a little bit on Instagram as well. So if you see them, just click on them and leave comments as well. We kind of will respond to them as long as we see it. We're just really glad to be here. I had a lot of fun, even though it's like 2 hours long. But really appreciate you guys being here with us, and I'm looking forward to seeing you guys here same time, same place next Tuesday.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so thank you again, as Nick has mentioned. Thank you everyone for joining, and we will sign off now, and we will catch you guys in the next episode, which will again be on Tuesday at 3 p.m. GMT or 10 p.m. Singapore time. So we'll see you then. If not, we'll see you in the shorts as well. But yeah, until then, we will sign off. Bye-bye.
All right.